Hey there, nation. Welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to another edition of Necro-Mondays, where we showcase Necromunda Battle Reports every Monday during our science fiction gaming weeks with our series Anarchy Road. Now, in case if you're unaware, Anarchy Road is a Road War campaign that is using a homemade set of rules that we have called Necromunda Road Wars. It's the name of the rule set that we came up with. You can find those rules in my blogger.com site down in the description below. This campaign is going on for quite a while. We got 6 different gangs fighting out in the Ash Wastes of Necromunda, and this is battle report number 68. It is a Road War scenario that is fought between Precinct 13 of the Main Force Patrol versus the People Eaters of the Scavvies. My friend Sister Sarah will be playing Precinct 13, and Odeth is playing the Scavvies. And yes, the Main Force Patrol as well as the Scavvies are the 2 original gangs that we actually created for this campaign setting. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. At the same time, I'll show you photos of both gangs, their vehicles, as well as their stats. If you want to see exactly what they're bringing for this one, you can pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this game on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so their rules for this one is Road War. But this has been playing this one for the very first round of our campaign, so that way everyone gets used to fighting each other using the Road War rules. There we go. Apologize about that. A lot of alliteration in that word. So as you can see here, my friends are playing on a 4x6 table. Pretty much what ends up happening is that we're using rolling road rules on this scenario, which means that every single time somebody touches the edge of the table, all the terrain gets shifted down 6 inches to represent the fact these guys are drawing on a continuous road in the wastelands of the situation. Other than that, it's pretty much straightforward. The idea is to make your gang bottle out, and that's pretty much what you're going to do for this one. For the experience on this one, for anyone who survives, they earn D6 experience points. You also earn 5 experience points for each enemy fighter you take out of action, and the winning gang leader also earns 10 experience points. Now, if you're wondering why the experience table is so high, it's to represent the fact that the steep learning curve of surviving in the Ash Wastes, either you learn quick, you die. So to represent this, that's why the experience points are so high on this one. Now, the rewards, the winning gang earns D6 times 10 credits, while the loser earns D3 times 5. In the case of a draw, both gangs earn D3 times 10 credits. For reputation, the winning gang earns D3 reputation points, while the loser earns 1 point reputation. And since both gangs are fighting each other for the very first time, they both get a bonus reputation point. However, if any gang bottles out, they lose that point of reputation. So with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, my friends are playing on a 4x6 table. Sister Serial, as well as Precinct 13 of the Main Force Patrol, is located on the left-hand side, while Odeth of the People Eaters with their Scavvy gang is located on the right-hand side as well. Now, what the battle plan is on this one, I really couldn't tell you just because I'm the arbitrator in this battle report. All I'm doing is taking the photos. But it looks like that my friend Sister Serial is going for like a pincer attack, is what she's going for. She's got 2 vehicles in her gang, so she has one right behind the bridge up there. You can kind of see it's in the shadow of the bridge section. Looks like she's going to try to catch the People Eaters in a crossfire and in a pincer attack and hopefully defeat them that way. Now, as what my friend Odeth's going to do, he kind of told me what his plan was. His plan was to charge forward as quick as possible and kill people. I mean, that's his only plan that he has going on. He's playing Scavvies, and that's what Scavvies do best. So with the battle plan over, let's go and talk about deployment real quick. Alright, so let's go and talk about deployment for Precinct 13. Down the bottom, that is called the March Hare is the name of the vehicle. It is a medium vehicle. It's got an enclosed hull and loudspeaker system. It's also got a hull-mounted heavy stubber. And located in that unit, I believe, is Judge McCaffrey, Judge Roop. Judge McCaffrey is a Palanite captain. He's armed with armored undersuit. He's got flak armor, enforcer bolt gun, and a stub gun, dum-dum rounds, a knife respirator, as well as teamwork ability. In that unit, as well, is Judge Roop. He's a subjugator sergeant. He's armed with armored undersuit with layered flak armor. He's got a sledgehammer auto ram with grenade launcher, as well as gas grenades for that one. He's also got a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, a knife, a respirator, as well as teamwork skill as well. And also driving that vehicle is a man named Judge Sarcy is his name. He's a Palanite patrolman. He's got an armor undersuit, flak armor, stub gun with dum-dum rounds, as well as a knife. And I believe Judge Ziggy is also in that unit as well, which is another Palanite patrolman. He's got an armored undersuit, flak armor, combat shotgun with salvo and shredder rounds, a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, a knife, as well as a respirator. And finally, at the top of the screen there, we have the Big Bopper, which is another medium vehicle. It's got an enclosed hull, as well as a hull-mounted heavy stubber as well. And crewing that vehicle, we have Judge Charlie, who is a subjugator sergeant. He's armored with unarmored undersuit, layered flak armor. He's got a subjugator grenade launcher with frag, as well as stun grenades. He's got a stub gun, a knife, dum-dum rounds, a respirator, as well as a teamwork skill. And in that crew, as well as crewed by other characters, we have Judge Scuttle, who is a Palanite patrolman, who's also the driver of that vehicle. He's equipped with armored undersuit, flak armor, a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, and a knife. And we have Judge Goose, who is another Palanite patrolman. He's got armored undersuit, flak armor. He's armored with enforcer bolt gun. He's also got stub gun, as well as dum-dum rounds, knife, as well as a respirator. And that pretty much makes a deployment for Precinct 13 on this one. Alright, so now let's talk about the People Eaters, the Scavvy gang on this one. So their vehicle is called the Meat Wagon. It is a super heavy transport, which is the largest vehicle you can have in this campaign setting. The whole entire gang rides this one vehicle as well. It's got a weapons cache that has boomsticks on it. It's also got a turret-mounted grabbing claw on it. And also this vehicle has tracks, so that way it can ignore difficult terrain. Now the only problem with this super heavy transport is that because it's a large vehicle, it only has a movement characteristic of 5, so it's a big boy that rumbles kind of slowly. Now located in this, of course, is the entirety of the gang. We have the Shot Caller. Shot Caller is right there in the back next to the little crossbar there in the back. He's a Scavvy boss. He's got flak armor, a blunderbuss, a pair of axes. He's also got zombie bait as well as commanding presence. And in this one, they end up rolling 3 zombies called the Roamers, which are in the back of the vehicle as well. And if you want to know who Shot Caller is, he's the guy with the little dude on his back. He's got a little guy with a shotgun and then a big guy down below the arm with axes. So they're 2 different dudes, but they count as one character. Also in this vehicle, we also got 2 Scalies. One's called Rar. Rar's armed with a scatter cannon. He's got Nerves of Steel, Killer Rep, Regenerate, as well as Cold-Blooded special rules. And we have Snarl, who is another Scaly. He's armed with a spear gun, the dreaded spear gun. Oh, the spear gun is deadly in this campaign setting as well. He's got Nerves of Steel, a Killer Reputation, as well as Regenerate rules, as well as Cold-Blooded. Also in the back there, we got a mutant named Bloodwing. He's got a reclaimed auto gun, a fighting knife. He's got the Wings mutation as well. We also have a couple of Scavvies in here. We have Cannibal Renfield. Cannibal Renfield is a Scavvies armed with a Manage Catcher, as well as a double-bladed knife and fighting knife. We have Deadhead Lee, who's another Scavvy armed with a weathered wasteland longbow, axe, fighting knife, as well as explosive arrows. Another Scavvy named Crimson Wind, who's also armed exactly the same way. And then we have 2 other Scavvies. One's name is Sockethead. He's armed with a reclaimed auto pistol and fighting knife. And Gazer's armed exactly the same way. And like I said before, we got 3 plague zombies riding the back on this one. And that pretty much makes the deployment for the People Eaters. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Sister Serial and O'Death roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Scavvies, and the first thing that my friend decides to do is activate his driver. The driver of this vehicle is a man named Sockethead. Sockethead basically just takes the vehicle and runs it forward 10 inches, makes it go as full movement allowance as well, and that was his very first activation. At the same time, we'll go across to the table to Sister Serial. Sister Serial then activates her very first activation, which is Judge Sarcy, who's the guy who drives the Big Bopper. They basically moved up their normal moon allowance of normal 10 inches forward, and they just spend another basic action cut loose with their heavy stubber directly into the vehicle as well. She opens up with 3 shots from her heavy stubber, and all 3 shots manage to hit. In this case, it goes directly into the plague zombies, knocked off 2 of them with serious injuries, and the third one got knocked off, but pinned with a flesh wound. So because of that, nailed 3 zombies right off the bat, which is kind of good for Sister Serial. A pretty clean shooting on that one. Unfortunately, those zombies do not count for bottle tests or anything like that, so because of that, they're just kind of like, free chaff for the most part for the Scavvy gang. So for O'Death's next activation, he then activates Bloodwing. Bloodwing does a double movement to fly directly onto the top of the walkway there, so that way he has good overwatching fire with his auto gun. And for the very last activation of the turn, Sister Serial activates the March Hare. The March Hare basically just drives... Oh, sorry, that's the Big Bopper. There we go. That's right. That's the vehicle's called the Big Bopper. The March Hare was the one that shot at them. I got the names mixed up. I do apologize. So as you can see in this photo, the Big Bopper does a double movement along the top of the table, hitting directly around that bridge, looking for that pincer attack, it looks like. And that pretty much ends the action phase. And the reason why is because the Scavvies, for the most part, are out of range of shooting at their opponents for the most part. So with the action phase over, we go directly to the end phase. As you can see in this photo, one of the zombies gets a flesh wound, so he rolls over, so he's perfectly fine, while the other one goes out of action. And like I said, they don't really count against for casualties for the Scavvies, so no harm, no foul at that point. So that takes directly end of turn number 1. As you can see from this overhead shot, looks like the Scavvies are trying to take the offense by going after the March Hare, which is located up in front. At the same time, March Hare is moving up forward and shooting with his heavy stubber, while the Big Popper looks like it's going around and trying to flank them from the top of the table as well. So at the end of turn number 1, we go directly to the top with turn number 2, and both my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Scavvies. As you can see in this photo here, the one thing that ended up happening is my friend did a group activation for the most part. Just activated his driver once again, so Gazer hits his foot on the gas, and the vehicle moves up a normal 10 inches going forward as well. Like I said, for the super heavy transport, it's pretty much slow going for the vehicle because it's so large. My buddy needs to buy some engine upgrades for his vehicle to make it go faster. So with that, my friend Sister Sarah goes next. She decides to take the March Hare and actually pull back a normal Necromunda allowance just because she doesn't want to get charged up by that super heavy transport because it's so much bigger. If she actually manages to gets hit by that super heavy transport, it can really wreck up her vehicle really badly because she mainly has a medium haul for the vehicle. So they kind of pull back their Necromunda allowance. So for his next activation, Odette taps on one of the Plague Zombies. The Plague Zombie does a simple action to get back on his feet again, and another simple action to move forward. Plague Zombies in this situation move a random 2d6 inches. Managed to roll an 11 on this one, so because of that, the zombie starts rocking his way directly towards the March Hare, which is located at the top of the screen. So with that, Judge Scuttle, who's the driver of the Big Bopper, he decides to go forward, completely decides to ram right through the zombie right there in the center and rams him over and basically puts him out of action, which is actually kind of cool. You can actually imagine that little scene taking place here. And what ended up happening is they did a group activation we decided to do. Judge Charlie, who is a Pilgrim Sergeant with a grenade launcher, he orders the driver to ram forward, and then he himself takes his grenade launcher and he opens up directly onto the meat wagon. So the shot is good, landing right smack dab on the top of the meat wagon and blows up as well, catching both Shot Caller as well as, I believe, Cannibal Renfield. I also believe it caught Crimson Wind. It also managed to clip, what's his name, the guy on the bottom there, Deadhead Lee. Managed to clip that guy as well, hitting them both with the explosive and raining a hot shrapnel down on him. Unfortunately, the blast didn't do much of anything. All it did is really just pin people, is all it did for the most part. Didn't really cause any problems. However, Deadhead Lee, though, he does fall off the vehicle, but he's perfectly fine. He's just currently pinned at this moment. So for his next activation, Odette decides to activate Bloodwing, who decides to do a double action and board the Big Bopper there, which is like they're located right behind the vehicle. Manages to land it, successfully passes his initiative test and land on there. So because of that, the other judge, what's his name? Judge Scuttle, I believe is his name. Yeah, oh no, sorry, not Judge Scuttle. Judge Goose, that's his name. He decides to respond back and engage with him in close combat. Unfortunately for both these fighters, though, they weren't able to do much of anything. So because of that, they're just kind of staring at each other for the most part. So for his next activation, Odette decides to activate Shot Caller, who does a group activation with the rest of his fighters as well. From this photo, as you can see here, Sockhead does a simple action to jump off the vehicle, another simple action to move forward, making his way directly towards the Big Bopper, which is located in the back. He also does another group activation with, what's his name, with Deadhead Lee, as well as with Snarl, who's the scaly arm with a spear gun. Now, Deadhead Lee tries to open fire with his Wasteland Longbow. Unfortunately, he's only got a 5-up ballista skill, so the shot doesn't do anything, he just kind of misses. He does open fire with a explosive bolt from his arrow, but it didn't do any problem there. However, Snarl, though, takes aim with his spear gun and opens it directly onto the March Hare. And as you can see in this photo, the shot is good. It penetrates, also puts 2 damage on directly onto the hull of the March Hare as well, which is actually kind of bad because the hull for the March Hare is only at 4 wounds because it's a medium vehicle, so that part was not so great for the Precinct 13. So while this is occurring, of course, my friend then activates, Judge Charlie, that's his name. That's the guy who's armed with the grenade launcher. Judge Charlie decides to jump out of the vehicle and decides to engage the zombie that's making his way directly towards the vehicle as well. So because that engages him in close combat as well. Luckily for my friends, though, nothing much really happens in the combat phase. The two of them just kind of stare at each other, and that pretty much rounds up the action phase on this one. And since nobody's injured, we skip the recovery phase and go directly to the end of the turn. So here's an overshot of the entirety of the table at the end of turn number 2. As you can see, the Big Bopper as well as the March Hare have guys basically encircled the meat wagon and getting attacked on 2 sides. However, it looks like my friend Odette is taking the offense by attacking the Big Bopper in the back, going after the crew that's in charge of that, and at the same time trying to suppress the March Hare, which is the vehicle right in front of them as well. So because of that, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and once again, my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that goes directly to the top of turn number 3, and the Scavvies get to go first, so Odeth does a group activation, what he decides to do. He activates his leader, who also then activates the driver. The driver decides to go back his normal moon allowance of 5 inches, not to ram the Big Bopper, but to get within range. And the reason why is because they decide to operate the Grabbing Claw, which is on the top of the turn on this one. Now, the Grabbing Claw is on a turret, which means it has 360-degree rotation on that part. And I believe it's Deadhead Leo is the guy who operates the Grabbing Claw on this one. So what ends up happening is that the turret swoops around behind and grabs onto the Big Bopper, pretty much pinning the vehicle directly to the back of the meat wagon. So until someone damages that Grabbing Claw to make a release of it, wherever the meat wagon goes, it's going to drag the Big Bopper with it, which is absolutely kind of fantastic. And since the vehicle is also attached to it in this way with the grab rules, which means that anybody who boards the Big Bopper automatically does so and passing the initiative tests automatically, because it represents the fact these guys can just storm onto the vehicle now without any hesitation. So that part was really bad, because the worst thing you can do is come to close combat with Scavvies, because Scavvies excel at close quarters combat. So like I said, because it was a group activation, he decides to charge, and his fighters he decides to do. So the first thing he decides to do is send in Shotcaller. Shotcaller charges directly into Judge Scuttle, I'm sorry. Judge Scuttle is the driver of the vehicle, engages him in close combat. At the same time, Sockhead also charges, and same thing with, what's his name? Cannibal Renfield. He also charges in directly to into close combat, getting these guys getting sworn at all ends by Scavvies. So this is what the combat phase looks like for the end of it. Unfortunately, Cannibal Renfield as well as Bloodwing failed to do anything against Judge Scuttle, or able to cause any injuries to him whatsoever. However, what it was that Shotcaller, though, he did manage to put a serious injury directly onto Judge Scuttle. Judge Goose is the guy in the back. I do apologize. I'm getting my names mixed up really bad on this one. I do apologize already, guys. So Judge Goose was the guy who was fighting against Cannibal Renfield as well as a Bloodwing. Nothing much happens there. However, Shotcaller, though, he does put a serious injury on Judge Scuttle. So because of that, Judge Scuttle goes crashing face down the ground and bleeding out. However, it was Sockhead. Because Sockhead is the next guy to go, he just finishes him off with a coup de grace real quick. So because that, Judge Scuttle suffers an out cold result, and his part of the battle report is over with, and also missed the very first blood for the Scavvies. And because Judge Scuttle is gone, both Sockhead as well as Shotcaller follow through. Shotcaller goes directly to where Judge Charlie's located at, so that way you can put some support on the attacks with the Plague Zombie in the top there. And Sockhead decides to board the Big Bopper, so that way he can get engaged in close combat with Judge Goose. And that pretty much makes up the action phase on this part. So since Serial goes next, she decides to activate Judge Charlie. Judge Charlie has no problem whatsoever putting out of action result directly on the very last of the Plague Zombies, managed to kill him correctly. So because that, he goes and faces against Shotcaller, engages him in close combat. So because of that, Roar gets activated next by the Scavvies, and he charges directly into Judge Charlie as well, and also engages him in close combat. Unfortunately for my friend Odeth, though, he pretty much flubbed his hit roll, so because of that, nothing much really happens of it. So now Judge Charlie is fighting both the leader of the People Eaters as well as one of the Scalies in the gang. For Sister Serial's next activation, she decides to activate the driver of the March Hare, which is Judge Sarcy. Judge Sarcy decides to take a basic action, aim with the heavy stubber, and takes another basic action to open fire with the heavy stubber that's mounted on the vehicle as well. Unfortunately for my friend Sister, though, she was only able to put one wound directly onto Roar, which is the Scalie's arm with a Snarl, who's the Scalie's arm with a spear gun. So he gets pinned and also loses a wound at the same time. But other than that, though, not much really happens there. So with all the Palanite and all the main force patrol guys being activated, that pretty much ends the turn for them. So the rest of the turn is pretty much dedicated to the Scalies of the People Eaters. So the first thing that ends up happening is that Deadhead Lee managed to get back on his feet again. He sends a swivel action to do that, does a basic action of opening with his crossbow, with his wasteland longbow, firing an explosive arrow. But unfortunately for him, though, he missed his shot, so not much really happened there. While that's occurring, Crimson Wind is activated next. Crimson Wind decides to charge directly into the back of Judge Goose and engages him in close combat as well. And he manages to slip in a flesh wound directly onto Judge Goose as well. So because of that, Judge Goose now loses 1 point to his toughness, and he's also fighting, 4 different Scavvies all by himself. So he's doing his main force patrol pretty proud on this one. And for his last activation, he then activates Snarl. Snarl sends a simple action to get back on his feet again because he was pinned earlier, and he takes a basic action to open fire with his spear gun directly into the March Hare. And the shot is good, and to make matters worse, he managed to put 3 wounds directly onto the vehicle as well, which is all kinds of bad. So because, as you can see in this photo, managed to put 2 more wounds as well as a couple of flesh wounds on the vehicle too, which means that this thing suffers 1 more flesh wound. The vehicle will be decommissioned at this point because the hull will be absolutely broken, which is absolutely horrible. And since nobody is wounded in this phase, we skip the recovery phase and go directly to the end of turn number 3. As you can see in this photo, things are not looking very good right now for the main force patrol. The March Hare is about 1 flesh wound away from being decommissioned from this campaign, which would be really bad for them. At the same time, the Big Bopper is currently being grabbed and held in place by the grabbing claw of the meat wagon, and the rest of the Scavvies are boarding the back of the vehicle and attacking it in force. So with turn number 3 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. So we go directly to the top of turn number 4 for the main force patrol. So Sister Sarah gets to go first. She activates Judge McAfee, who does a group activation for the entire crew of the March Hare. What ends up happening is that Judge Ziggy, as well as Judge Roop and Judge McAfee, they spend simple action to dismount their vehicle, and a basic action open fire directly into the meat wagon. We'll talk about that in a second. At the same time, Judge Sarcy, who is the driver of the March Hare, he actually spends 2 actions in order to try to repair his vehicle using repair actions. Unfortunately for Sister Sarah, though, she was only able to cure 1 flesh wound, so because of that, the vehicle is still at risk. It takes 2 more flesh wounds, and that vehicle is decommissioned. However, during the shooting phase, she did get mixed results. She does manage to hit Snarl as well as Gazer, who's the driver of the meat wagon as well. Unfortunately for her, though, all she managed to do was pin both these guys. She managed to hit them both, wasn't able to wound them, though. So Snarl, he falls off the vehicle, and he's currently pinned. He's perfectly fine, and Gazer's also currently pinned at the same time. So with that, we go to the rest of the action phase. Now, this action phase is actually a couple of action phases, one after another, actually. It just pretty much concentrates here on the combat that was going on here in the back. So what ended up happening is that Odette decides to do a group activation with Shot Caller, who also does a group activation with Socket Head, as well as Snarl, as well as Roar, and finally Bloodwing as well. And they basically go off and attack the judges. Unfortunately for them, though, the only thing they was able to do is put a flesh wound on Judge, what's his name? Judge Goose is his name. No, sorry, Judge Charlie. They do manage to put a flesh wound on him for the most part, and that's really about it from that. From there, of course, my friend Sister Sarah then activates Judge Charlie. Does a group activation with Judge Goose. They carry a counterattack, but unfortunately for them, though, they're not able to do anything against their targets either. So a couple of melee rounds in here, and pretty much nothing really happened for the most part. So from there, Odette gets to go next. He decides to do a simple activation on Gazer. Gazer gets back on his feet again, and because he's the driver, does another simple action to move forward 5 inches. At the same time he's doing that, he is dragging the Big Bopper with him as he's going forward as well. Now, because he's just dragging the vehicle, there is no damage done to the vehicle during the drag. All he's doing is just pulling the vehicle along with him. And that's because that grabbing claw currently has that vehicle pinned to the back of the meat wagon at the same time. So with that, the rest of the action phase is dedicated to the members of the people eaters, because they're the only ones who have any fighters left over. So what ends up happening is that what's his name, Deadhead Lee, he decides to charge directly into the back of Judge Goose, tries to engage him in close combat. Unfortunately, though, the only thing he was able to do is put a second flesh wound onto Judge Goose. So because that Judge Goose is now only toughness 2 at this point. In the end, Crimson Renfield was able to put a wound directly onto Judge Goose as well, puts a serious injury result on him because of that. So because of that, he goes crashing face down to the ground, is bleeding up, which means that Crimson Wind gets to finish him off in a coup de grace. And as you can see in this photo, managed to put that guy out of action with an out cold result as well. So he goes full recovery, and he pretty much is done for the rest of the scenario. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the recovery phase. And in the end phase, unfortunately, Sister Sarah does fail her bottle test, so because of that, her gang decides that they're not going to be sticking around any further, and if she wants to keep on fighting, she'll have to pass successful cool tests with those guys. Which, of course, takes us directly to the end of the game, because Sister Sarah doesn't want to lose her vehicles or her fighters than she already has at this point, which is actually really bad, because now that the last of the judges on the Big Bopper are basically gone, that means the Scavvies have captured that vehicle, and now it's in their possession as well, which is really, really bad. Netting a victory for the Scavvies on this one. So with the battle report over with, we go directly to the post-game, because this game is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
So let's go ahead and talk about the post-game for the main force patrol of Precinct 13. So in the end, they actually suffered 4 injuries on this one. Judge Charlie, he was captured by the People Eaters. Unfortunately, being surrounded by 3 members of the Scavvies was not good, so because they got captured by the People Eaters, which means that Precinct 13 will need to do a rescue mission if they want to save him, as well as the Big Bopper, because the Big Bopper also got captured by the People Eaters because that grabbing claw was in possession of the vehicle by the time the scenario ended, so because of that, they steal both of those. Now, luckily for Sister Sarah, she will have a rescue mission scenario that she can play to rescue both her crew member as well as her vehicle, but if she fails to do so, I think Judge Charlie's going to go in the stew pot and the cannibals are going to eat him. At the same time, the Big Bopper will become their vehicle. Judge Scuttle suffered an out cold result, so because of that he's perfectly fine, while Judge Goose suffered a grievous injury, so because of that he will not be able to participate in his next scenario. Now for advancements, 4 members of the team did advance. Judge Charlie leveled to level 2, earning +1 to his toughness. Same thing with Judge Sarcy as well as Judge Goose, so now those guys are much more difficult than Wound. And Judge Scuttle also levels up to level 2, earning +1 to his ballistic skill. From their territory, from their precinct house, they earn 1 point of reputation from that, as well as 30 credits. And from the trading post, they got 10 credits from the scenario, as well as 30 credits from the territory. When combined, makes it 40 credits in total. They decided to take those 40 credits in total and put it in the stash for a grand total of 55 credits. For the reputation, earn 1 point from the scenario, as well as 1 point from the territories, and 1 additional point from fighting against the people eaters for the very first time. Unfortunately, though, they did ball it out, so because of that, they have a grand total reputation of only 2 on this one. The new record now is at 0 wins and 1 loss, and the new gang rank now is at 1,650 points because they lost one of their vehicles to the people eaters. So we go to the post game now for the People Eaters of the Scavvies. For injuries, nobody in this warband got injured, so they're perfectly fine. 4 members of this gang did level up. Shot Caller, the leader, leveled to level 2, earning +1 to his wounds, so now he's carrying 3 wounds on him now. Campbell Renfield leveled to level 2, earning +1 to his intelligence. Crimson Wind leveled to level 2 as well, earning +1 to his toughness. And Sagahead also leveled up as well, earning +1 to his cool stat. Now from their territories, from their Wasteland territories, they managed to scavenge 19 credits, and because they won the scenario, they also got a crash site. Now, for Scavvy rules, what ends up happening for the campaign is that if a Scavvy ever should get territory, Scavvies can't hold on to a territory because of the way they live. So because of that, what they do instead is they loot the territory instead. What ends up happening is that when they loot it, they get the max amount of credits they would get from a territory, and the territory gets transformed to Old Ruins, which means that if they lose any territory, the most that their opponents can hope for is an Old Ruins territory. So because of that, they got 120 credits from the crash site that they managed to loot in that process. Now, from the trading post, they got 30 credits from their scenario, as well as 139 credits from their territories, as well as 15 credits from their stash, giving them a grand total of 184 credits. With 184 credits, they spent 45 credits in order to feed the gang as well. They also lose 10 credits in order to recruit some more zombies with zombie bait as well. Now, with the money they had left over, they recruited a winged mutant ash hound named Death Leaper, adding to the gang. So it is a mutant hound that can also fly, which is terrifying. And they placed the remaining 14 credits into their stash as well. At the same time, they also managed to capture Judge Charlie, as well as capture the Big Bopper, which is a medium vehicle. So like I said before, Sister will have the chance to try to rescue these guys in the next scenario with a rescue mission, but if she should fail, though, the Big Bopper stays within the Scavvies' possession, and I got really bad feeling that Judge Charlie's going to be eaten alive by the members of the Scavvies and given into cannibal stew, which is a rule set that we have for this gang. What ends up happening is you take the strength, the wounds, and the toughness of the guy who's being cooked alive, you combine them together, give you servings of cannibal stew, and the cannibal stew will increase strength, toughness, as well as possible mutations for each counter of cannibal stew you serve up the members of the Scavvies. So it's actually kind of a cool rule set. If you want to learn more about it below, you can actually look at the rule book. You can see exactly what we roll for those guys. So that will be kind of interesting if they fail to save Judge Charlie. Anyways, from the reputation, they earned 2 points of reputation for the scenario, as well as 1 point of reputation for fighting against Precinct 13 for the very first time, giving them a grand total of 3 reputation. Their new record now is at 1 win and 0 losses, and their new gang rating now is at 2,595 points. So you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's good to do for this one. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's good to do for this one, guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.